welcome. The world is watching the Chinese property market with some interest, and who better to ask and understand what really is happening, and is some of what's happening, particularly from a price point of view, a bubble-like behavior. Well, I'm joined by Ronnie Chan, chairman of Hanglung Properties of Hong Kong, but also with a substantial exposure to mainland China. Ronnie, thank you very much for speaking with us. I know that you've always been very bullish about the Chinese market, but tell us what's been happening now. Why is there rising concern about prices in China, which is also causing some reaction from the banking system and also causing property share prices of companies like yours to take a bit of a knock?
Well, first of all, the Chinese residential real estate market and the commercial real estate market are quite separate. So let's just address the residential, which I assume is your question. First of all, the Chinese people, in terms of investment alternatives, there's not a whole lot. So the home is not just a place to stay, but it's also a place to invest. And so you can imagine, with the wealth creation of the last 20, 30 years, a lot of that money is going to go into the residential real estate. So it is very difficult for the government to control prices, and it has gone out of sight and become a social issue. Young people who graduate from university have no chance of buying their own home in the next 25 years or whatever. So obviously it worries them. And so the government is doing the right thing to manage prices down. They have no choice. The best thing is to manage supply, but supply takes time. So they have no choice but in the interim manage demand, which can be rather blunt. And so it's a complicated situation, but I think overall the government is doing the right thing.
Okay, so you're saying the current the news that we see is because of attempts on the demand side as opposed to the supply side.
Yeah, there's a lot of tools used by the government.
So that's monetary and fiscal.
Oh, and administrative.
Okay.
You're not allowed to buy a second home,
right.
For example. So those kind of things that are not exactly market mechanisms, and the government, I think, knows that, but they have no choice because supply takes time to build, and so in the short run, what are you going to do? Let prices get out of hand and create a social problem? The only thing they can do is to manage demand for the time being. I don't like it. I'm a free market guy basically, but I understand they have no choice.
Okay. So what's happening on the supply side? I mean, the underlying thread of what you're saying seems to be that there's still a huge amount of demand waiting, and it's really a challenge for companies like Hanglung to catch up.
Well, first of all, Hanglung doesn't do residential real estate in mainland China except the very high end. So it is really distant from the masses. So the supply side, the problem there is the relationship between the central government and the local government, where the local government is not given a lot of resources, so you have to find it yourself. And one of the few resources they have is land. So they sell them, and this is a limited commodity. So every city has to be very careful how much they sell the land. The higher, the better. So there's immense pressure, internal pressure, to raise land prices. You know what happened. Eventually, that will be transferred to real consumer apartment prices, and that is really at the crux of the problem, I believe, in residential real estate in China.
And how does that get fixed?
Well, first of all, as much as 35, 40, maybe even more % of a local government's budget come from land sales. That's not healthy. The former Premier Zhu Rongji has stated this a couple of years ago, which I think is reasonable. That is, all the land sales money goes to central, and then on a line item basis, whatever you need, give it back to you. So you take away the incentive for the local government to sell land at the highest, ever higher price. So I think that it's a structural problem. In particular, it's a problem of the relationship between central government and local government. Unless you fix the fundamentals of it, prices is going to continue rise.
Okay. What about Hong Kong? I mean, how is the Hong Kong market looking to you at this point?
Hong Kong market is okay. We had 10 crazy, foolish years. For 10 years, basically, there's no land sales. At the beginning, Asia financial crisis, the SARS, I understand. then for the ensuing 5, 6 years, 6, 7 years, there's no sale of land. And the government owns all the land, basically. That is not already sold to the public hands, which is what, 80%, perhaps 70 to 80% of the land. So when you distort the market by not releasing land into the marketplace, prices went up ridiculously. And so that's why I say the government is forcing the real estate developers to make money, or any property owner. Now, the present government, which is now in office a year or two, is doing its best to supply land again. The story is quite similar to that of Mainland China. But the worst thing that the last government has done is not only did it not sell land, it did not prepare a land bank. So when you need to sell land, you have no land to sell. And it takes time to do the infrastructure in order for land to be sold. And so the present government is doing its best. I think they're absolutely doing the right thing, but it takes time.
Right. So let me come back to Mainland China. So of course, real estate and construction is a large component of overall GDP growth and the economy. But what's your sense of the economy as a whole, particularly for the year ahead?
Well, the economy obviously is slowing down for many reasons. When real estate prices, because it accounts for 15–20% of the economy, when that comes down, the economy comes down. Consumption, for example. The overall, and when real estate prices come down, the negative wealth effect kicks in and people don't feel so good, and hence people don't spend as much. That said, the domestic consumption still grow at something like 13% per year. So that's still okay. The high-end stuff is very much hit, mainly because the Chinese government is doing the right thing, that is to contain corruption. And so a lot of those gifting and irregular spending for high-end products have come down like a ton of bricks. Short term, it hurts the economy, but I think in the long run, it is absolutely the right thing.
But has the high-end spending affected your own high-end offerings?
Oh, seriously. Hanglung is known to be one of the very best developer, owner, and manager of top end malls. And so, you know, of course we heard. In the old days, they would grow at double digit and sometimes by 20-some% per year. While Hong Kong chuck along at 7–8–9%. Now in the last 2 years, Hong Kong, our rent growth, investment rent growth has been at what, 11–12%, whereas Mainland China is only at 6–7%. So it is obvious that things are calming down in the mainland. It hurts us, yes.
Right.
But I support the government policy for that.
Right. So are you looking at other markets at this point? I know that you've been in the United States, but maybe not as overtly as in other places. What are the other markets and how?
As far as the public company, which is Hanglung Properties, is concerned, China is such a crazily big market. I don't care who you are, no matter how big you are nothing in the face of a humongous market like that. And the opportunity is boundless. And we have, over the last 20-some years, built up a brand name, a management capability, a good team, and a wonderful portfolio of assets. And so why should I go anywhere? Right now, on an unleveraged basis, our mature properties in Shanghai are yielding roughly 44% on an unleveraged basis. You tell me, where can you get return like that? And it is not a one-time thing. After I collected the rent this year and get 40-some% of unleveraged yield on my original cost, next year the property is still yours. And it's still growing, slow as it may be, still at 6%. So next year you will get not 44%, but maybe 45%. So it's still growing. So why should I go anywhere? Every company has limited resources. We are building about close to $12 billion outside of Shanghai. Because we have been fortunate to do a couple of things right over the years. We have zero debt. For about 7–8 years, no debt. Now, you tell me, it's a crazy situation. Where on earth can you find a company which is doing $11–12 billion of projects and yet have no debt for 7–8 years? And that can be the case in China, including Hong Kong. And so we're just focusing on the mainland market. That's where that's what we know. That's where we know, and the opportunity is humongous. So go for it. A lot of people say that the commercial real estate market, which we play in, the market is saturated. Well, I always say that if I'm Yao Ming, you know, the basketball player, if I'm Yao Ming, do I worry about 1,000 Ronnie Chan on the court? Right?
Yeah.
Or, sorry, I only know the American one. If you are Brad Pitt, do you worry about 10,000 Ronnie Chan getting advantage of the beautiful girls? No way, right?
Yeah.
So as long as you produce the top quality stuff in the mainland of China, this industry, the shopping center, high-end shopping center, is highly differentiated. It is not commodity-like. And so the winner will always take the lion's share. Usually the number one guy in the market versus the number two guy, the return is at least 2 to 3 times. If you were to look at the per square meter of per square foot sales or rent, also 2 to 3 times. So you have to be the best. It's not a matter of pride. If you're not, you don't make that kind of returns. So you just have to strive to be the best.
Right. So last question, for those who are watching this outside of China, would you urge them to come to China and invest, and if so, in what kind of areas?
Oh, don't even try. Not because I'm afraid of a competition. Because we are so well established already. The system is so complicated and different. We from Hong Kong, who have no language barrier, who have no cultural barrier, it took us quite a while to learn that system. And so for foreigners, it's almost impossible. But there's one way you can participate: buy my company shares.
Which are listed in Hong Kong.
Absolutely. Well, Hanglung Properties 101, fantastic. Code number.
Thank you so much for speaking with us, Ronnie.
Sure.
Thank you.
Thank you, Gavin.